And I need to start recording. Alright. So yeah, beginning my set review with Shardless cards. As a quick overview to the 5 rare shards, I think the rare shards are all insane. They all obviously are dependent on having a deck that can support them. Other than, I think, the Blood one and the Diamond one, being Blightbark Reserve and Wax Sacrament, are a bit more generic because the Blood one gives you Deathcry Make a Zombie, which is like generically fine. And then the Diamond one gives you Illuminate one, which is also a very reasonable effect. So I think in Limited, they're... I guess they're like slightly better than a Coins or something. No. Maybe not. Are they better than Ices? Probably not either. Alright. But they're like slightly better than basic shards, I think. In Limited. In Constructed, these will obviously see a ton of play. Yeah. There's like straight up no doubt about it. As a note, they make actions, so in Limited, if you are an action deck, these are a bit stronger than usual. Think they will be valuable? 100%. I'm gonna play like 5 of these cards, like, almost assuredly. Or, not 5. Like, 4... If you're like dual shard, you'll probably end up playing like 3 or 4 copies of each one in your deck. Unless they have like no impact on your deck at all. Like, if you're not a mill deck and you don't need actions, Nameless Drought is obviously completely worthless for you. But yeah. Also, Drop of Whimsy is like one of the only ways to transform your cards now, which is kind of weird. Moving on to the next resource in the Shardless pile, we have Rift Core. Rift Core is a resource that gains a charge, doesn't give you any thresholds, which is kind of an issue. But it also lets you kind of dodge flood a bit. I know it's like the least exciting thing to be doing, because a lot of people always complain that like, oh, you shouldn't be playing like the colorless resources that don't do anything. But I think playing even Shard Prism or whatever is really good. Like, if Shard Prism is the one that I'm thinking of. The resource that comes in non-exhausted, and then you could cycle it for 3 resources and gain a threshold. Like, that was pretty strong. And I think this is just as strong. Not just as strong, but the card is, like, fine. Especially if your resources are fine. People need to, like, learn to play cards like this in Limited, because if you get to play like 17 resources and one of your resources is a card, like can be a card or something, like makes a portal, versus your opponent who just plays straight up 17 resources, you have a higher shot at like continuing to draw action. If your decks were exactly the same, except you had a Rift Core instead of like a basic resource that you didn't necessarily need to fix for your deck, like if you saw the or if you guys have like done the math on how much resources you need for whatever you need to play, if having the colorless resource in your deck usually impacts you by like 2 or 3% or something, like 2 or 3% of the time when you have the resource will it actually impact you. So like it's not a huge thing if your resource base is fine enough, and then you'll, when you have the resource, just have 1 more card than your opponent, essentially, which is really strong. Next is Chalice of the Victor. When you play a troop, trigger each troop you control's momentum. I don't like cards that don't do anything. Like, obviously, if you like get there on momentum, or half get their own momentum, and you need some way of enabling momentum, this is really strong. But momentum really requires you to draw your momentum troops the like immediately, except for the ones that start out with like higher than momentum 1, or the ones that are like generically good anyways. So this is good if you plan on playing like the momentum champion and garbage otherwise. In constructed, I do not see anyone playing this card ever. So sorry, but yeah. Next up is Corners of the World. Corners of the World lets you align this with 2 elements of your choice. On deploy, if it gets bounced, it will reset or something. No, it won't, right? Where are the alignments? Sigil. This gets... Oh, so it will. Alright, so like if it gets reverted, it'll reset to like nothing or something. Some of them are really strong. I think the Ruby one's kind of bad unless you're already really ahead. But it's kind of just a really weak, or it's really slow because all of them trigger at the start of your turn. So it's a 5-cost card that doesn't affect the board state, but it also like isn't necessarily going to just win you the game immediately when you untap, or when it gets back to your turn, I guess. So I feel like this card is kind of underwhelming for a legendary. If the format ends up slow and stally, which I doubt it will be, I think the stalliest it'll get is if a verdict deck gets there. Then yeah, this is not going to be good enough for limited. In constructed, I think there are way stronger effects that you can get for way cheaper. This costs 5. It's unique, which means you can't have more than one in play. Not a fan. In limited, you really need to get there on some kind of slow dirty deck. There are too many combat tricks that I saw while initially looking through the set, plus a few other really good cards, that I find it really doubtful that Corners of the World is getting there. Next card we have up is Dark Desire of Nulzan. Dark Desire of Nulzan is our first double major socket card. When you deploy, it creates 2 more copies of itself and puts it into your deck. It's probably fine. In limited, this is obviously great. Like 2 major sockets does like so many different things. Making troops and spells is actually kind of awkward in limited because it just, or maybe it's not. I guess this is a sizable enough body that it really doesn't matter what you put on it. Like anything to give it upside is really strong. You could even like put in cost reduction on this and make it kind of strong. Although putting both cost reduction major socket or major gems in this is probably a really bad idea. Like if you went Sapphire Diamond and you're like, when I draw this costs -2 and it normally costs -1. Making a 3-cost 4/4 is nothing to brag about. But like making a 4-cost 4/4 with a major socket or a 5-cost 4/4 with a major socket all the time is pretty strong. In constructed, I honestly don't know. I was thinking that the new Blood anti-sockets card would actually hate sockets out of the format, and then I learned that Gemborn Prowler is also rotating. So it means that that's not even like Gemborn Prowler gives you the option of like slowly early game removing some key socketed troops, and then late game you get to play the new Blood card that like just voids the entire socketed troop board. It probably means that the Blood Diamond sockets deck is dead. Especially because there's also Arcing Rust, which also hates on that. Or, yeah. And then, I don't know about the other versions of sockets. Like, Haraza sockets probably stays alive, because that deck is really aggressive. And the Sapphire Diamond sockets deck that Curtis piloted in the CCS probably is still alive as well. Next up is Disruptor Drone. It's an uncommon. This card is great. I would play 2-cost 3/1s most of the time, and it's a 2-cost 3/1 with upside. So why not? It's a quick speed constant removal once it's on board. So it's like Seal of Cleansing if you guys have played Magic, but on a 3/1 body, which is great. Great sideboard in limited. I think you main deck this card. I think that's how good it is. There are a lot of like random constants in a bunch of colors now that are strong looking, and this is a really aggressive troop. So I think you main deck this in limited. I highly doubt that this is in your reserves. I would pick this kind of early. Obviously, I wouldn't pick it like as early as the bomb cards or really high synergy picks for your deck, but this probably gets picked over some of the more marginal cards like the Lava Axe card that they spoiled. You don't think it's main deckable because so many other cards? I think it is main deckable. There's very little reason why you can't play this in your main deck. Dyna Dummy. This card, I do not think you main deck. It's a 1-cost 1/2 or 1-cost 0/3 that Deathcry gives Gladiator. Great. That's such a powerful ability. That's why I played this card. No, I didn't. Even the like wild card in the last set, the 1-cost 2/1, I didn't play, or the 1-cost 1/1 with Gladiator 1, I didn't end up playing that much. And that one had sacrifice target troop gets Gladiator 1, which is a lot more controllable than Dyna Dummy. This is a really low tier playable in limited. In constructed, I doubt that it sees any play. Oh, Disruptor Drone in constructed, I doubt that this sees any play either. Like, I think there are just better ways to destroy constants. There might not be. Maybe in Rock, this will see some play, since it is a lot cheaper than Chomp Knight. And like, one of the problems I have with Chomp Knight is my opponent just gets to play their like constant for like so many turns until my Chomp Knight gets relevant. So yeah. Electro Claws, this is one of, I think, 3 cards that are artifacts with a deploy ability and then another sacrifice ability, both of which are basic. Yeah. Electro Claws is... I don't think you play this ever. Like this is such a bad combat trick. Like it's a basic speed combat trick, and then on the back half, it's a basic speed combat trick. So Electro Claws, I don't think you play. The other ones are Rand Amp. Oh, there's only just one? Alright. Oh, no. No? Yeah, just one. Rand Amp is much better. I actually think that you might play Rand Amp. Phoenix MD mentioned that Crush is pretty good, but like that's not good at basic speed, right? Like, unless the Crush is gonna kill them immediately, that's not good. And there are much better ways of getting Crush. Assuming that you're in a aggressive deck with like Ruby, there's the combat trick that's like way better than this. These are very low tier combat tricks. Rand Amp at least is a permanent buff. It gives +1/+1 and a random boon, and you can sacrifice it to use its ability again. And yeah, like, it's kind of awkward. I don't know. Getting random boons is so RNG. I really don't like it. It's probably a strong enough card. No, it isn't. I don't play Poppy Cakes. This is like a Poppy Cakes where you don't get to choose and it costs double as much to get +2/+2. Alright, next up is Eternal Architect. I got lambasted for saying that Eternal Architect might be okay by friend of the stream 32beat. In limited. In constructed, there's no way you play this. Like, it's a 5-cost 3/3 flight. It's an artifact, so it's like even vulnerable to artifact ability or destruction. and its effect requires you to like get to your like next turn. Yeah. DJO mentions that this is too important of a drop slot. I assume in constructed. In limited, this is probably slightly less competitive of a slot to play, but its effect isn't even that strong. Like giving your non-resource cards cost -1 every turn is just oh DJo's talking about Randamp. My bad. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about Eternal Architect. I don't think it's great in limited. If you need a 5-cost 3/3 flyer, it might be okay, but I don't usually need one. In fact, there's a Sapphire card that's a 5-cost 3/3 flyer. It's the Sapphire card. It's a 5-cost 3/3 that makes a common portal when it comes into play. That card is much better than an Eternal Architect. In limited, getting cost reduction on your cards isn't very practical, or maybe not practical, but like it doesn't have long-term like game impact. While drawing 0.7 of a card, which is what I've decided that portals are now, even though I haven't actually done the math. Getting 0.7 of a card is better than cheapening your cards. Next up is Mecha Mutt. Mecha Mutt is a 5-cost 2/4 with Gladiator 2 and Socketable Miner. I think this card is a very reasonable card to play if you need a 5-drop. It's not the most exciting 5-drop, but it's a 5-cost 4/4 on attacks with a miner socket, whatever miner socket you want it to have. Also, if you want it to bury, it buries 4 when it comes into play because it has power on your own turn, which is, yeah. Meanwhile, it's also a decent blocker, so like it becomes a 2/6. So if it ends up being if you end up needing a 5-drop, it has a wide range of utility, but it's a 5-drop, and there is very likely other 5-drops that will compete for it and be much stronger, and you also don't want that many 5-drops. Alright. After that, we've got Replipopper 4000. It's a 3-cost 3/2, deploy, gets 2 random boons. And then when it deals combat damage to an opposing champion, you sacrifice it and summon 2 Replipopper 4000s. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that I don't think that Mecha Mutt will see any constructed play. Repopoplar, if it gets any form of evasion, and like you get in and you get 2 new Repopoplars, it's insane. Like this is basically a pocket army, right? Like that's the kind of card that is here. A pocket army. All you have to do is get evasion on your first one, or be able to punch the damage through once, and then the second one of your 2 Repopoplars has to have evasion, and then you just grow your board over and over again. And soon enough, you can't win. Yeah, this is a great card in limited. In constructed, I find that harder to believe, mainly because it's RNG. You could get like Skyguard and Flight. Maybe not Skyguard Flight. Like Skyguard or Crush. Skyguard Crush, right? And like when you hit the lows, it's just like completely useless. And if it doesn't have speed, usually it's gonna like eat removal or just get blocked off in constructed. So no constructed. The next card is the second artifact hate card that they've printed besides Disruptor Drone. It's Robogoyle. It's a 5-cost 3/3 flyer that when it's buried, you put it into play. And when it enters play, you put 5 random cards from your crypt into your deck. Wow. Wow, this card is really good against Mill. Wow, I don't expect to play it except against Mill. Also, Also, this is like way better than Architect. Like, this as an uncommon is probably way more useful than Architect. Against Mill, which I assume is going to be one of the more popular archetypes based off of like all the new Mill cards that they added and Mill support. That yeah, Robogoyle is real strong. Real useful card. But yeah, like if your opponent mills you on turn 2 and you hit it, like the game's just over. You get like a free 3/3 flight. What are they gonna do? So yeah, I think this is really punishing against mill. I don't think I would play it otherwise. I don't really like 5-cost 3/3s with flight. I don't think the body is like worthless, but the body is underwhelming for its stats. And its deploy effect is actually worthless, except against mill. So yeah. Next we've got Twilight Scout. It's a 3-cost 2/1 flight, Deathcry Verdict. Sometimes you will play 3-cost 2/1 flights. This is, or 3-cost like 2-power flight troops. This is a strictly better one. Not strictly better. It's better than most 3-cost 2-power troops. Alright, Curtis mentioned that Robogoyle is actually good against Vampire Prince, which is true. If it hits Robogoyle, it blocks Vampire Prince. It also blocks Princess unless that's rotating. So yeah. This set is really power creep heavy feeling for those of you just entering. And those of you still listening to when I put this on YouTube. So yeah, Deathcry Verdict, I still have yet to know how strong Verdict is. Based on the fact that they set a 2-cost card with Verdict Runic at common, while a 2-cost Illuminate one was 2-cost Illuminate 1 Runic was uncommon, I suspect that Verdict is worse than Illuminate. Like, on average. So Twilight Scout must be like minor upside. I would give Verdict like maybe 0.3 of a card right now. And then Illuminate would be like 0.4 or 0.5 of a card. So it's like not that far. And then Portals would be 0.7 on average, I think. As of my current estimation. But yeah, Twilight Scout is fine if you need flyers. Or if flyers are going to win the game, too. And it does give you some value when it dies. And one of the verdicts could, in fact, get your Twilight Scout back, which is kind of amusing. Twilight Sentry. You put an artifact or constant you control into your hand for a 4-cost 5/5. So, I don't know. Like it's overstated for its cost, but like, do you want to play this usually? I assume it's made for like Goot, where you just like have Daybreaks or whatever, and you just get to bounce a Daybreak. But I don't think you want this card. Maybe the artifact pseudo combat trick things, especially Randamp, are like good with Twilight Sentry, and then you get to go off with Twilight Sentry. I assume not. Twilight Sentry is probably a fine card if you're in Goot, and it's probably not so great if you're not. Obviously no constructed play. And then we have Twilight Watcher, which is a 3-cost 2/3 if you control a constant. It has +1/+1. This is another card for Goot, and I guess maybe what is it? Adani Zedek for the Verdict deck too. It could be a 3-cost 3/4. That's strong. I've liked 3/4s. You usually pay 4 for them in limited, but they usually have upside too. So I guess the upside for this one is it costs 1 less. I would probably play it in limited if I were planning on some kind of constants thing. But yeah, it's not like an exciting build around or anything. It's just like slightly good already if you've already decided to build around the constants. All right, so we're done.